Hello boys and girls, and welcome to VR Artillery. So this is a brand new channel, this is my very first episode, and what better game to start with than Morrowind in VR. So when I was looking around, I found that modders have created a brand new way of actually playing. So OpenMW has a VR supported version now. So I've tested it out, I absolutely love it, and here is my first thoughts on it. For this video, I'm using a Quest 2 linked to my PC via virtual desktop, and I can tell you that it runs smoothly as anything. It of course needs OpenMW to work, and once you download the VR launcher for this game and tell it which files to open, it's actually a pretty straightforward process to get it to work. I'll start with the good stuff, and there's a lot of good stuff. So how does it look in VR? Well, honestly, pretty awesome. The graphics don't hinder my experience any more than any other game, and those who play native Quest 2 games will know what I mean. Some of those games look like hot garbage, but we still enjoy the immersion all the same. And whilst avid PC VR gamers can benefit from some of the more intensive mods, I stuck with very basic mods for my playthrough and I still really enjoyed it. So something else that impressed me was the use of looking around your 3D space with the menu system. Those familiar with Morrowind will remember how much of a pain in the arse it was to get all 4 menus to fit on your screen at once, but this is no longer a problem. Thanks to the design the mod has implemented here, all 4 menus are allowed at once, in large, and it's pretty great. And it's a very intuitive use of VR. The HUD is given to you on your left wrist, and it also works very well as a means to hide it when you want extra immersion. Another thing was the controls. I was nervous about the number of key bindings the game has on the keyboard, considering the touch controllers only have 4 usable buttons in each hand. But what they did to get around this was the meta menu system that they've created. So this allows for all those extra buttons so that you can rest, quick save, look at the journal and stuff like that. This was actually a really good workaround for all those limitations of the controllers, so big props to these guys. A few extra cool things that you can do in VR is getting a close-up look of all the weapons, which you could never fully see in 3D before now. It's honestly kind of cool to summon a bound dagger and have a good look at it in your hand in 3D. And whilst two-handed weapons don't work as you'd expect because you can't hold them with 2 hands, and I think we'd agree that this is a limitation of a 19-year-old game which we can forgive, it does look pretty sweet to swing a huge battle axe at your enemies with one hand. But combat is something that the game struggles with somewhat in VR, and for some reason enemies with throwing weapons will never hit you. It just doesn't hit for some reason, I don't know why. But the charge of the weapon is something that is not always obvious at first, and maybe this is something that I'm missing, or something that with more time I'd get used to, but a lot of my heavy weapons would just hit for measly damage, so I think that the charge isn't all that obvious if you're hitting just a quick attack or a wound up big heavy attack. And because you couldn't hold the weapons in both hands, bows were also something that looked pretty weird to use. But again, I can forgive the modders for this limitation, and it does still require your aim to be pretty decent for this to work. My advice for anyone wanting marksman as a skill is to try it with a crossbow instead. It works much better. For anyone wondering about the specs of your computer to run this thing, I'm actually running this game on a GTX 950. In case you don't know, this is well below the usual standard for VR games, so it's doing a very good job of running this. Would I recommend this to any Morrowind fans? Well, yes. I'm someone who's completed this game far too many times. Desktop, laptop, tablet, phone. I've actually played this game just about all the ways you can play it. My favourite way of playing does have to be the tablet, because I do love the touch screen, and the phone screen was just a bit too small. In VR, the experience is definitely better, but the lack of interaction with the world is kind of what kills it for me. I guess the mechanics in Morrowind simply don't have enough playability for this to really be its own game in VR. If you think about Skyrim in VR and Fallout 4 VR, we all know Bethesda had the audacity to make these ports just about as lazily as possible and still charge everyone the full price of the game. But the modders have used the physics engines available and made those games a much more playable experience in VR. Skyrim especially has some amazing mods that could almost convince you the game was made from the ground up for VR, but Morrowind just doesn't have the capacity for any of these physics enhancements that allow the game to be more than it is. Objects are completely static, which means you can't interact with them in any way, and I think we've just got as much out of this game as we can. Maybe in the year 2050, when Skywind is released, I'll play this game through in VR then. But I'll end by saying that if you're tempted to try it, then it's definitely worth it. Morrowind is a game that I could play over and over again, and I regularly do, and it's easy enough to install this mod. The guys who have made this possible have done a simply amazing job at maximising the potential this game has, and I'll probably go as far to say that with the right mods, this is the peak Morrowind experience. This might also finally be your opportunity to give a squib some much needed pets, to give some good love into everyone's favourite mentor, or to give yourself severe nausea by using the Scrolls of Incarian Flight. If you've watched this far, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.